Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am AA Ron, and this is the Inclusive Dad Podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, rate, or review the show on your favorite platform. We truly appreciate your feedback and would be honored if you shared the podcast with friends and family who might benefit. Today, my guest is Stephanie. I did not ask how to pronounce your last name. So, how do you pronounce your last name?
Polcyn.
Polcyn. Today, my guest is Stephanie Polcyn. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a mom of 4. I have been married we are going on almost 15 years of being married. And I am currently a stay-at-home mom who works from home. But I don't know. I live in Northwest Indiana now. And I've always been a Midwest kid, but we were military for a little while. So I'm married to a veteran. So there's that fun of life. But
there you go. Have you lived in any fun, exciting places?
We did 3 years in Germany. My second is actually dual citizenship because I had him over there. Okay. And then we lived in Colorado Springs for like 6 years. So nice. Super fun places. We loved them all, but home will always be the Midwest for us.
Right. I actually have a cousin now her husband is in, I believe, the Air Force stationed in Germany. So they're there right now. And then I love Colorado Springs. I've been there 3 or 4 times. That's beautiful there.
Yeah.
It's a little different than, I'm in Minnesota with cornfields. You're in Indiana, you said, with cornfields. So it's a little different in Colorado Springs than either one of our spots. So.
Yeah, it was beautiful. You had the mountains. We looked at Pikes Peak every day from every angle of our house. So it was different, but we will go to the mountains as vacation homes and as vacation times, but our love is the cornfields.
There you go. Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit, how are you involved in the disability world?
So my husband, obviously being a veteran, I shouldn't say obviously, but being a veteran, he is 80% disabled through the military. And that has been interesting. But I myself lost half of my hearing last year. So I woke up one morning and I literally could not hear. So I deal from the supporter end, I deal from my own experience, and then I don't look at my kids with disabilities. I don't look at them and say they have a disability, but I have one kid with ADHD and one with asthma. But I still have had to advocate and include them and try to teach them how to love their differences without trying to be, have that difficulty.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I have trouble with all the labels and stuff too. I don't like them, but in order to give context, I feel like I need to use them to give a little context, but it's just, I don't like all the labels of everything that my daughter needs to get the services. They attach the labels for that purpose, and then that's how she's kind of viewed, and I don't like that. So, but yeah. So, what is your definition of inclusion? You submitted this, so I will read it. Inclusion is the ability to accept and support all people, no matter what. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think inclusion is accepting people. It's an acceptance, and it's loving them for their unique gift. And that's something that I tell my husband. That's something I tell myself. I tell my kids is that you were handed a gift. It's different than everybody else's, but it's a gift. And I explain it to my kids it's your superpower. And I think when we look at it and we understand that I might be different than, my mind thinks different than my husband's, but that doesn't make his mind bad. It just makes it different. Yes. And I need his mind, but I also need my mind. I need the give and take. So if we all come together and we come as a united front, as a united group, we can love each other, our differences, our quirks, and our fun and our superpowers, and we can amplify those superpowers, those things that are awesome about us. And where they're not, and they're not the best, maybe somebody else in the group can pick up and can help with it. So it's that coming together and love is associated to it, not the anger or like negativity. It is all about loving and coming together to love and come to help the better good.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like more of your introduction to disability has been more recently. Is that true?
Well,
Or how?
I mean, my husband's been disabled 11
Okay.
11 years. So I mean, he
It's
deployed,
been a while.
I think he deployed, my oldest is turning 13, so he deployed
Okay.
13 years ago.
Okay.
So I mean, I feel like we've been dealing with disabilities for a long time.
Sure.
I knew from my daughter being born that she was different, that she wasn't the same, and she's 14.
Yep.
So I look at it and go, like, my own physical disability is new. It was only last year.
Yeah.
But
sure.
as the caretaker and the support, I've been dealing with it for quite a bit of time. And
Sure.
I know that some have dealt with it longer than I have, but I feel like it's not too.
Yeah. Sorry. I guess the reason I asked that is for me, I didn't have any introduction to disability prior to my daughter being born. So she's 21 now, will be 22. So like growing up, I don't remember hearing about disability, seeing anybody in a wheelchair. So my first experience in the whole disability world was after she was born. So that's I should have gave you more context. So I mean, growing up, did you ever remember hearing about disability, seeing any people in wheelchairs, anything like that?
I mean, my schools when I was growing up were very inclusive.
Okay.
And so I remember even being in like 3rd and 4th grade, and we had kids with Down syndrome that had aides, like had teacher aides in the classroom. And I would be friends with them, and I would hang out with them, and we would be partners on projects and things, and it was fun. So
That's awesome.
I think I learned from a younger age that some kids were different.
Right. Yeah, like I said, my experience was I don't remember. And you mentioned Down syndrome. I don't remember anybody with Down syndrome either. So I mean, I was in a rural school in Minnesota. I mean, there wasn't a lot of non-white kids either, to be honest. So it was very like a certain type of people are there. So there wasn't a lot of diversity and stuff. So yeah, so for me it was more hey, there's like what's special education? What's all this stuff that I've never dealt with before or heard about? So it was all new to me. So so how did you when you first found out that your children had ADHD and stuff like that, how did you find out about the resources and stuff? Did somebody, tell you what was available? Or did you have to search it out on your own, or how did that go?
So I will say that I was the first one who advocated really, really loud for my daughter, knowing that she was different, and the school system kept telling me, no, she's fine. No, she's fine. But she struggled. She struggled very, very hard, and I could see it in her grades. I could see it in her frustration. To the point where I even pulled them and I homeschooled her, and I homeschooled her brother. And I realized in that moment that I needed to seek additional support. So I had to do a lot more research when it came to my kids, to get them the resources that I knew were available. Like, I knew there had to be something that we can do for her that would be supportive, and that the schools had to have something. There had to be an avenue that could be supportive to her. So I had to do a lot more of the research and a lot more of the questions and the digging and those kinds of things to get the right support for her.
So did she eventually go back into the school system then?
Yes. Yeah. So I homeschooled them for 3 years, the year before COVID, and the year after. During that 3-year time frame, I actually had her evaluated outside of the school system. And that's when they went back into the school system, I brought that evaluation and said, there's got to be something we can do. Like, this is, I have a diagnosis. Like, I have it on a piece of paper. You got to be able to do something now. And they were able to, that's when we got her 504 put together. We got her the support she needed and counselors and the teaching staff was incredible, but it took a lot of legwork on my part to be loud enough because she felt scared. She was scared to speak up and say that she wanted help. She was scared to say that she wanted certain things. She didn't want to be labeled. She didn't want to be picked on by kids. She didn't want that. So I had to be the one to be like, I'll privately cause a ruckus if I have to get you what you need.
So I mean, how did that make you feel as a parent, having to go through all that work? And I'm assuming you had to pay for the evaluation and stuff?
Yeah, I had to pay for it.
Okay.
I felt grateful that I had my own strength to be like, no, there, like, you can't tell me my kid is just basic and normal. Like, there is something. And I felt validated when I had the paper that said it. Like, you all thought I was crazy, but here, like, I'm not crazy. Like, neither is my kid, but like, I knew something, that mom intuition kind of kicked in, and I knew that there was something. So it was a sense of validation. But I feel bad for so many other people who are, I don't want to say let down, but they are, because you as a parent know something is different from them. You know it. And yet you have to jump through so many hoops to get it recognized, to get it even seen, or like all the things that we had to do. I mean, even her own basic doctors didn't think anything of it. They're like, she's just an active kid. And I was like, no, this is more than like just being active. Like, give me something, like, work with me here. And I feel bad for those parents that don't have that, or are intimidated or afraid to say that, or like don't have the resources, because now parents and child are both struggling when there are resources available. And so I was glad I had the strength to go through for it, but I do feel bad for those that the resources aren't as available.
Yeah, for sure. That makes complete sense to me. My situation was, she was in early childhood. She was already evaluated in the special education world with the resources, so that never was a problem for us. But because she qualifies under multiple categories and uses a wheelchair and a bunch of other stuff, has seizures, so she was sent, what I call, like, sent to the segregated setting across town, bused over there when her brother was able to walk to the neighborhood school. So she was got a special ed, no problem, got supports. It was the inclusion piece for us that she was sent there, and that, I mean, at that point I didn't know about inclusion or know there was another option. I was just going along with what the school said, because they're the school, they know everything, and they're telling me what I need to know. So but once, found out about inclusion, trying to get her back into general ed, that's when the work started for me, is just figuring out how to get her back into general ed, because once she was out of gen ed, then like trying to get back into it was a whole all of a sudden there's these other things you have to do to get back in, or prove that you can, behave or sit still for so many minutes, or all these things before you can get back in. Whereas if you're already in there, you don't get tested every, they don't check this every week or month to make sure you're still doing it. But once she was out, it's like, hey, now we got all these other hoops we got to jump in. So yeah, so she qualified right away, but had to work harder later.
I just think it's crazy, like that. That I understand that they might be different, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't still be able to, especially if you have siblings or you have other kids at the local schools. You shouldn't have to worry about that. It should be the ability. And I understand resources are limited at the schools, and I get that, but it shouldn't be jumping through hoops to have your kid just go to school. Like,
yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, so that's interesting. Another thing you touched on, though, is where you said a couple of times where you like knew something was wrong. Other people, or professionals, were saying, no, everything's fine. I mean, I have parents that I do consultations with them, or a phone call. This is what's going on. They're like, am I crazy? I'm like, no, you're not crazy. You're a parent. Something doesn't seem right to you. You're questioning something. You got to follow your intuition. If you you have a gut feeling about something, don't let other people, especially professionals, talk you out of it. But like you said, you feel great. You're grateful that you had like the time and energy to do that. I mean, some parents, that's just, for us, my daughter, I mean, she needs help with all daily living tasks. And then you could have therapy on top of it. So at some point, as a parent, you have to decide, okay, prioritize all the things that we could be doing. What's the most important? And sometimes, honestly, school is, you have time and energy to fight the inclusion fight for my daughter, and other times it's like she's going to school. Let's just her being there, being successful, having a good day is all we can do right now. And then when we have the energy, we can work for better. So it's definitely have to figure out what's most important for your family, and also that's also thing I like to tell families, like you decide as a family,
Yes.
With your child's input, what you want their school, what you want their dreams, their life to look like, and you work towards that. Don't let the school tell you what your child's life is going to be like, or what their dreams are. You figure that out, and then help work with the team to try to make that possible.
And I agree with that 100%. I think that it has to be a family thing, because at times there were times where it was hard having to be like, I know that you're not getting the help, and she's
Right.
frustrated because she's
Yep.
like, I can't just sit like everybody else. And it's like,
Right.
I know, honey, I get it.
Right.
Like, and then as a parent, you get frustrated because then she's being told to sit when she just can't. Like,
Right.
you're like, she's second grade. Like, just let the kid stand for half a minute. Like,
Right.
what?
Yeah.
Or like, let her fidget. I know she taps. I know it's
Yeah.
annoying. I get it.
Right.
I'm with her all the other moments of the day.
Yep.
But if it keeps her quiet, like,
Yeah.
let her do it. But I know that you got to watch the energy. Your energy has to go where it's needed. And sometimes the fight is where you have the energy for, and other times just hoping you have a great day that day is also a win.
Right.
I have 3 other kids, and so some days you're like, this is worth the fight, and other days you're like, forget it. Just whatever chaos shows up today is going to be what we're doing, and we're rolling with it today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you talk about her being able to stand up and stuff. Like, I mean, we didn't, when I was in school, I remember I used to doodle on my paper, like chew on pencils or chew on pen caps. Like, at the time, I didn't know that was coping skills, but like I figured it out. And even as we're sitting here, I'm like twirling my pencil. So it's like all these little things we just do, which is helping me. And also, I can't sit still for 8 hours a day. I have to get up. Like, before we get on this interview, I went and took a little walk to get some energy out, or that kind of stuff. So I mean, we need to do these things. So how can we set up our days, or the classroom, or to have different stand up breaks or move around breaks, or if the kid needs to stand up by their desk to listen to the teacher for a few minutes, let them stand up. I mean, just, we're not all the same. We'd be boring if we were. So let's give people what they need to be successful. That's what I think.
Yeah, and I think that once I came in with her like diagnosis, and we sat, and the really great part about it was that the school was asking her, what do you need? What would be helpful?
That's
and
cool.
She even said, like, I just want to stand up. Like,
Right.
sitting in my chair makes me go nuts. Like, I need to stand up. She's like, they're like, great, we'll put little walk breaks, or give you a minute, or sometimes she can get distracted by other kids around her. And it was interesting because back in like younger years, they had, like, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they put like multiple desks together, and they call them like pods. So there will be like 4 desks together, and they're groups. Well, she would always, I would walk into the classroom, tell the teacher at the beginning of the year, like, I know she probably has ADHD. I don't have a diagnosis, but if there's anything I can do to help support you and her, let me know. And every parent-teacher conference I'd get, well, she probably, I had to put her as an island today and make her sit independently. And I was like, that's punishment, because my kid can't sit there. Like, that's not fair to her. And now they have it where it's like, if you want to take a test separately and you need that space, cool. But she sits in regular class. Like, she sits in the space just like everybody else. Like, nobody else would know she has any accommodations unless she tells them. And so I'm like, I think it needs to be more like that, where we're not trying to segregate a kid who can't, just because they can't sit.
Right.
That's not fair.
Yeah. No, for sure. So how old was she when she got her 504 then?
This will be her third school year. I thought she was not until 6th grade or 7th grade that we put her 504 into place, because I didn't get it until 6th grade. I fought until she was in 6th grade to get that diagnosis for her.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
And my husband grew up with ADHD, and he's like, no, we're not going to diagnose her. Like, I don't want to diagnose her, because we grew up in the age where like the diagnosis was, it was done. Like you were segregated. It was not a great experience in our generation.
Yep.
And they heavily medicated. Yep. And he's like, I don't want her to have to go through that. Like, it was horrible as a kid to be segregated out of class, to be looked at as different, to have the label, and then get medications just shoved on me. And he's like, it wasn't fun. And I was like, but I'm going to advocate. Like, if medication doesn't, we're doing stuff differently. I'm not going to medicate first. We'll try with her nutrition and see what we can do naturally before we try to do anything with medications. But I was like, I'm going to advocate really hard for her, because I will not accept a label, but she needs the help that she can get. Like, I'm not going to sit here and play dumb and be like, no, it's all fine, when I know there's resources that can be provided for her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I understand what I mean, I can see where he's coming from for sure. I mean, I feel the same way. Like I already talked about labels a little bit. Like I can just see that because of these labels that she needed to get the services. Once she kind of she's received those labels, they just follow her and have people have a certain view about her because of the label attached to it. Which that part I don't like. So that, yeah, like you say, there is all this other advocating, speaking up, not allowing that to happen. It's just, yeah, it's a lot of work to keep that going. But yeah, I understand where he's coming from for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've given 2 TEDx talks. The first one I shared more just about our story and inclusion. The second one, which I gave in April, is I talked more about using empathy to make a more inclusive world. How do you think we can use empathy to make the world more inclusive?
I think empathy it's the heart-centered thought process, right? When we come with a heart center and we come with, how do we love, it automatically opens up for inclusion, because it's not looking at differences. It's looking at your unique talents and understanding that it would be, like you said, it would be boring if we all were the same. So how do we love and have empathy towards somebody who's different? How do we just show them love? Because that's how it is. It is a love and heart-centered thought process. So when we keep the empathy involved and we keep a heart center involved, it's easier to just include, because we understand that everybody's different. Even as 2 functioning adults who don't have any, labels, or we don't have anything, understand that, like, you're different than me, and that's wonderful. And we come with this love towards the other people, and we come with the idea that we can all make a difference, no matter what.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the phrase, we are more alike than we are different. I love that phrase. For sure. That's great. Another thing, as I talked about in that TEDx talk, was about using personal responsibility to make the world more inclusive. So part of that comes from, I would find stuff about inclusion, go to IEP meetings, and, hey, you need to include my daughter more. I found this thing, they wouldn't do it. I'd get upset at them, and that's kind of where my energy was staying. So switching my mindset around to, like, okay, I can present them with information. They can either say yes or no, but I shouldn't let my energy sit in that spot. I can do things myself to make the world more inclusive. So I try to talk about what's one thing I can do today to make the world more inclusive, like opening the door for somebody, saying hello, just small things. And I feel like if each of us does small things here and there to make the world more inclusive, or reach out to people, it's gonna start the ball rolling down the hill and make the world more inclusive. What's one thing that you think listeners can do to make the world more inclusive today?
Love somebody. Like, love the differences. Love
Right.
and don't come with such a closed mind.
Right.
That was something that, you know, talking with my daughter is, and talking with my husband is, they're like, it's so hard. It's so hard. And I'm like, but you're looking at it as a negative thing, and that, oh, poor me. But when we look at it with like, this is my superpower, it's my gift, it's making me unique.
Yeah.
When we look at each other that way too, is, I think it makes it easier because
For
people
sure.
feel opened, they feel
Yep.
empowered, they feel excited to own on to something that so many
Right.
people might look down for them for. You know, I just feel like what can we do is come with an open mind and an open heart to
Right.
understand that nobody is the same, but
Right.
they were created that way for a reason, and they were created differently, and that is beautiful, and I love it.
Absolutely. That's a great tip. While you were talking, I also thought about we need to share our stories. We need to share about who we are. I know it can be scary, but part of me being on having this podcast is talking with people, having each of us share our stories, because I feel like if we don't talk about our stories, we can feel isolated. Like, I'm the only person going through this. There's nobody else like me. So when we share our stories, we connect with others. Like, oh, I'm not weird. I'm not odd. There is some other people like me. So it kind of validates us that way too. So I feel like it can be scary, and you need to share them in places where you feel comfortable and you feel safe. But I mean, it helps others. Just me, the couple episodes that I've released so far, just people have contacted me. I've started sharing my story just because you share your story. So I think there's real power in us talking and sharing about things that people don't talk about normally.
And it's really incredible because, like, I have another podcast related to the military, and I've had my husband on to talk about his PTSD and
Yep.
all the things that have kind of come out from it. I have a friend who has come on. She's a Purple Heart veteran, and they've talked about it, and I've sat next to them crying through these talks, and they're like, but I'm okay. Like,
Right.
it's a healing space for them.
Yeah,
It was
for sure.
healing for them to be able to go, I went through this, but
Right.
I am here on the other side, and I'm
Yeah.
fine, and I'm good, and
Right.
I'm better than where I was a while ago. Or, you know, like, it has been
For sure.
incredible to, one, give them the space to share, but
Yep.
also to watch them share their story. And then both of them were very hesitant to, like, speak and kind of like share their
Yeah.
story. And then I showed them the analytics and like the numbers behind the episodes, and I was like, you two both have the most viewed episodes,
Right.
most listened to episodes on our podcast right now. And they
Yep.
both were like humbled by it, because they were like, I didn't think it would have done anything. And I was like, no, more people want to feel included. They want to understand. They want to know they're not alone. And you guys speaking up
Absolutely.
is doing just that. It's giving a voice to those who are too scared, too ashamed, too afraid, who just don't know how.
Absolutely.
You know, there's people out there that just don't know how to advocate, how to speak, how to say what's going on, and you're giving a voice to them. And it's incredible. And so it's powerful when you share your story.
Absolutely. Let's see. Is there anything else that you want to share that we haven't discussed? We talked about a lot of good stuff. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So then I had one of the last questions is, do you eat Spam? Yes or no?
No, I don't. My husband does, but I don't.
He does? Okay, cool. I live in Austin, Minnesota, where they make Spam. So that's my question at the end of my episodes to see. But if your husband ever wants to see the Spam Museum, you'd have to come to Austin, Minnesota, because there's a Spam Museum.
I will have to let him know.
They give you free Spamples when you come in, a little chunk of Spam you can try.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Where is the best place everyone can connect with you?
I'm on Instagram under Steph Polcyn. Otherwise, my website is stephaniepolcyn.com. You can get in touch with me there. And hear about all the things that I have going on.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thank
Had a
you for
great time.
having me. It was awesome.
Yeah. To all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Inclusive Dad Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, or review the show. Your feedback helps us connect with more champions of inclusion. Remember to share this podcast with friends and family who might benefit. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and keep championing inclusion.